Hello, guys. Welcome to my Steps to Sobriety with me, Stefan Neff. I'm today reporting from my kitchen to you. We are still in quarantine, level 2, so we're still playing it a bit careful. But having said that, modern technique is fantastic, and I have a guest for you guys. I've got with me Jin Chahal, a lady I have met a few months ago, around late 90s, in the UK, and our paths went along parallel for a while. So whilst I was in the UK, she was, then I came to New Zealand, she did, and so on. And it's beautiful to have her today on my show here and have a wee chat about well, all kind of things. Let's see what we can come up with, what might be of interest to you guys. So, Chin, tell me a bit about you. Here you are,
Hello.
a
Well, yeah. Sorry, carry on.
no. The floor is yours.
Yeah, as you said, we worked a few months back, almost 20 plus years ago in the same hospital. And if I remember rightly, we were both planning to, well, three of us were planning to go to New Zealand, and we ended up there together without realizing. And that worked. So that's just brilliant. And those times, the 3 years that I spent there, I have to say, were real almost self-development process for me, which you reflect on afterwards, how much you learn. Even silly things like I discovered avocados living there and healthy eating and living, and I thought, wow, this is just brilliant. So it's good. So, but I don't nurse anymore. Not currently, I'm still registered, though that's obviously how we met, working in the same hospital. But I still work for the NHS, but a more management consultant position now. So going in to help improve their cost efficiency, finding new ways of working, service transformation, that kind of thing. So, but working around that got me interested in how we, in ourselves, in our lives, do service transformation or efficiency in our own life, holistic approach, so to speak. But I don't know about you, but the older I've got, I'm not the same person anymore. Different things sort of inspire me. The meditative side inspires me now, the quieter life and more thoughtful. So it's what my big interest is now, and some of the work that I want to do as a sideline is help coach other people around the sort of holistic view of their life. What service improvement can I offer to somebody in their wider life? Especially healthcare professionals who are seriously bogged down, I think, these days, COVID or no COVID, as a stressor, generally in life. A lot of healthcare professionals are under a lot of pressure, and there needs to be some sort of stress release, and it's knowing how we manage that and be resilient still. So that's my big.
And that is, of course, such a huge thing, isn't it? COVID or not COVID, doctors, nurses, ambulance personnel, everyone on the front line, we always put ourselves last. First comes the patient, first comes the victim, first comes the team if you work in a team. You don't want to let anyone down. And there's a strong ethos in our professions to be there, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what's going on in your own life. And there is an ethos of being strong. We're strong. And after all, you have to be strong. You can't just be a quivering wreck walking into an emergency room or as a policeman into a family harm incident and say, oh, I don't feel very well today. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So there's a point of being strong, but at the same token, there are so many people out there, as you quite rightly say, who are so suffering deep inside, quietly. And then using not necessarily the right outlets. Would be nice if the worst thing that people would do is eat 2 avocados rather than 1, but that's not how it works, does it?
Out of interest, there's a colleague, you would probably remember him yourself, Dr. Michael Fairfield, from the same hospital,
Yeah.
Warwickshire. And I just emailed him and said, what do you and your staff, if you were searching for a mentor or a coach, what is it you would want from them? And what transformation would you want to see? And I didn't really get a great response back. It was more of a case of, oh, well, actually everyone is just getting on with it and they go home to a tipple or two. So they reach for the alcohol as a stress release.
Is that not true? Is that not true?
Very, yeah, very.
There was a time in my life when I worked in a department where there was a lot of political issues, etc. And it was a given when work finished around 5 or 6, within 30 minutes of that, you couldn't find another anesthetist for an emergency because everyone had at least 2 glasses of wine. Apart from 2 people, and one was a Muslim who just refused to drink, and the other one was me, who had just gone for not such a nice journey with alcohol. So these were weird times. So true, so true. So, but what would you say to someone who has lived that life for the better part of, I don't know, 10 years? Okay, let's say they had a good life, but now 5 years ago, the marriage was on the rocks, the job was on the rocks, the children behaved like dicks, everything came together, and out of one tipple in the evening, you ended up now with at least 2 bottles of wine, and I would say at least a few whiskeys afterwards. If such a person like that came to you, what would be your approach?
In the past where they have, and I'm just going by experience, I've just sat them down, and one of the key things for me is listening. And you do that why test. So what is it you're looking for? Why do you feel this way? And you just let them talk. Because when they start talking, there's got to be a root cause eventually. And some of these have been consultants, actually, where they just wanted to rant. So I've just sat in the office, forgotten that I went in working time just to talk about work, and just let them rant and rant and rant. And then so, right, okay, you've let that off your chest. Right, so what is it that I can help you with? Why do you feel this way? And I then need to understand that person, whether they're a consultant in the hospital or a friend or a relative outside of work, is to really get to the niche, which is what I usually end up doing. So with this particular person, I said, well, tell me why. Why do you feel this way? And then they'll talk a little bit more. Then there's something else that I will reiterate back. So what you're telling me is, this is the way you feel because of this, just to be clear. So what makes you feel like this? I'll do this why and why until it gets down to the nitty gritty bit. And then you think, right, okay, so what I'm hearing is, key to say what I'm hearing is, so that they understand you're listening, is this point, is point X. And then you reiterate it back. Is this correct? Am I getting it right? And they'll either start crying, so you know you've hit the nail on the head, or they'll say, yeah, that is it. So with all that, your marriage, your kids, the whole situation, it's so overwhelming. So you start from you, so I'll ask you as an example, you're the person that's come to me and say, right, tell me about yourself. Forget you're a consultant or an anaesthetist or a profession. That's just a label. Tell me about you as a person. So I want to know, Joe Bloggs, tell me, where did you live? What are your interests? And start from there. Go back to a good point and then start from there. And I think from my storytelling, how I use that in my action planning with some of the clients I have, is then to understand where they've been, where they are now, and where do they want to get to. So once I've understood that person, then you can start asking, well, why do you feel like this with your partner, your wife, your husband?
And that's so important. Yeah. Sorry, we've got a little delay in the line here, obviously. You're quite right. That is so important that is actually the key question in recovery overall, as far as I've found. It is many moons ago when I was in trouble, I had pretty good reasons why I was drinking. there was a lot of resentment, anger, and things like that, and people were not nice to me. I have to say that. And my caseworker sat me down and asked me to write a letter to a particular institution that I felt was at the cause of much of my problem. And I let rip. I wrote this letter and put it down. And, oh, it was beautiful, cathartic. I just spilled it all out. And then next time I met her, she took that letter, had a quick look at it, and then put it aside and said, exactly what you have asked. Okay, now tell me about you. But, no, tell me about you.
Yeah.
And I had no answer. There was no me.
That is the hardest question when you ask me, tell me about you, or so, you know, what do you value most? The basic questions are the difficult to ask. Even for me still, even though I might teach some of this stuff, is what do you want in life?
Exactly.
What's your purpose? Exactly. What's your principles?
Yeah.
They are really hard to answer, but they are the most unique questions in that you can drill down, and that's a bit of an art. You've got to sit that person down, and some people might, oh, this is just wishy-washy, you know, vision board. What, you're telling me to write a vision board and a letter to myself? Yeah, actually, no. Take time out for yourself.
So true, so true. And that's the serenity prayer. When you're in rehab and you go through an AA-like system, you often get introduced to the serenity prayer. So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
That's lovely, I like.
Yeah, and when I heard first about that, or when it was sort of chanted around me as a mantra, I thought, wow, did someone write that for me? How did they know that I'm coming today into rehab and they have practiced that just for me? That's how it felt. And this serenity, this calmness, this ability to step back, step outside of the situation and analyze it before you let your mouth run, or worse, type, or worse, drink and type. Been there, remember? So yeah, these are the serenity is beautiful. And I think if you can work with someone to achieve that, then you are such a beautiful, lucky person, because you are going to places that you could never imagine that you would. And that's the wonderful thing, working with someone like Jin, with a caseworker, with a mentor, etc. Because you are typically so knee-deep in shit, you're so blinkered, you can't actually see all that. And I think that's the hard bit. So recovery is a journey that very few people can do alone. Very, very few people. I've met maybe one or two in my whole journey. Most travelers very quickly fall off the wagon and do stupid things because we thought we know it all, isn't it? You know, as an alcoholic, as an addict, you know it all.
There's a sense of denial, isn't it? I think.
Isn't
a sense of denial. You think you're managing, you're coping, you know your own self. So
exactly.
It's your norm. That's my perspective.
You're so right, Jin. You're so right, and I think that is where it is so important to actually have someone to work with you. And it's interesting, Jin. You were sort of mentioning when I sort of said, "Oh, you're doing life coaching." You sort of frowned a bit upon that word. Do you want to share a little bit about the difference between a life coach and let's say a psychologist, and guidance person? Maybe you can just break it down in simple words, because many folks out there, they are broken and out, and they maybe like a drowning person. Should they finally agree that they need help, they reach out to anything and everyone. But let's actually figure out who is out there. What is a life coach? What are you in comparison?
So I think with life coach, I've got this stereotypical vision in my head. Every time you used to look at life coaches, they were these larger than life characters and, you know, very loud and boisterous, and they change your whole life. You'll be living extravagant beach life, bikini, champagne, the works. And I thought, I'm not in any position to tell somebody how to live their life better, because I'm the expert at telling them how they live their life better than they know themselves. So from my career, from my background, I've had people come up to me because they know I could be the advisor or I could help in some way. And I see myself as a very pragmatic person. So with my project management background, everything is in boxes. I know men usually think like that in terms of compartmentalizing things in boxes, and it makes my life easier. So when people look at me, I've had a call from abroad. I'm no marriage counsellor, but she called me up and said, I had to ask you what to do in this disastrous situation because you'd know what to do. And I thought, gosh, wow, okay, that's how I'm seen, which is great that people know I can go. I'm a go-to person for help. So I would see myself as a skilled helper. I shift mindsets. I'd like to think that I shift mindsets or offer another alternative. So I would call myself a mind shift mentor, a solution creator, skilled helper, because they're practical things that I do. I'm not here to sell anyone, you know, a magnificent life and six-figure salaries, living on a yacht. That's not me. And a lot of people, I think, still think, oh wow, that's just, you know, life coaches. What do they know? It's just all a bit of a money-making scam. But I'm genuinely here to help support people where they need it. So that's how I see myself differently. In terms of psychology, I'm not a trained psychologist, so I'm here as a friend, as a colleague, someone who I can have rapport with. And there's a certain skill, I think, that needs to be practiced. It doesn't come from learning it out of books or from school, where you generally have a persona or an aura that helps the other person get comfortable, that they start opening up and trusting you. So it's living by a set of principles. And I don't know whether that's my Sikh upbringing, and that the basic tenets of a Sikh is to, you know, help others and be mindful and support others and serve in some way, and respect and honor is sort of high on the list. So I utilize that. Some of it comes from professional working that I've learned over time, and some of it that's being instilled from my family values. Does that make sense?
Oh, a hell of a lot of sense. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that is a complete different talk. You are already now ticked for a nice talk between the two of us on tape with regards to the differences in cultures as far as alcohol is concerned. I'll talk about that another time. But no, you're so right. There is a framework out there there are many frameworks out there, and essentially what you are providing is help. And I love the way that you put it as someone who shifts mindsets. That is the core of recovery, of a sensible recovery, shifting the mindset from all those negative things, the anger, the resentment, the trauma, etc., dealing with that, and then shifting it towards what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What do you need to do? Which steps do you need to take in order to be that person? What does it entail? And it's often starting so much on the basics. Think about regular food, or think about rehydration. Think about trying to get to sleep, dealing with the withdrawal, all the basic things that you need to tick off. Sometimes we strive for this beautiful up there, the stars, the island, as you said, the life coaching. I want to be like Tony Robbins kind of thing. And I like the guy, actually. I like it.
I do.
I like to have a Fiji island where I can practice my walking over fire. I could do that challenge. The reality, though, is that is something that is on the very, very top of the pyramid. On the very bottom of the pyramid are those things that you can do every single day. where you can take action, small action, but consistent action that gets you right. But for that, you need a different mindset. You need to learn about that. You need to learn about putting yourself first. And that's where people like Jim come in. That's where you come in, to actually remind you on these kind of things. It's basically a bit like a guide. If you are a big ship coming into a new harbor, well, there is a pilot coming on board who is guiding you and telling you, well, you better don't go towards that rock. That doesn't end pretty.
Yeah.
Well, it's a similar thing in your life. And sometimes we are so close to the ocean, we can't see the rocks. That's where the pilots come in. So true, Jim.
I love Tony Robbins too, and I think, anyone who has aspirations, go for it. But to be Tony Robbins or anything like that, you got to able to understand what you're offering first. Otherwise, all those Tony Robbins who are there for the sake of the money, what can you tell people that you don't believe in your own self? So it's like you're right, getting the bottom basics of your own self, those constructs of your own self right and in order, and get that meaning, find that meaning. So for me, two key things are, rehab and reconnection. So it's connect, rehab, reconnection. Studies have shown that in terms of alcoholism, people do much better when they're connected to other human beings. And not so long ago, I was listening to a TED talk by a journalist whose name escapes me right now, but he was talking about some research on rats done by somebody called Bruce Alexander, on feeding rats plain water and drugged water. But they took the drugged water because the rats had nothing else to do, until the researcher decided that, well, how would their behavior change if they put in a rat park and gave them activities, and shown a big difference that, well, the rats wanted to occupy and focus their minds on playfulness and connection with other rats, which really surprised me. And the thing that came out of it was, the opposite of sobriety is not, opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. It's human connection.
Correct. That's beautifully put. That's exactly it. You want to create a life that is so abundant with those things that are important for you, that there is simply no room for a hangover, that there is no room for being drunk and reminiscing about your younger life. No, you want to be out there. You want to have your life. And for that, you need to know who you are. For that, you need to do some hard yards. You need to work on that. It doesn't just fall in your lap that you say, oh, I am X. No, you need to actually figure that out. You need to peel off the layers of trauma. You need to peel off the layers of being the busy mum, the busy doctor, the busy whatever your roles are that you have accrued in your life. There will be tremendous amounts of them. What happens if we could all switch them off and just put them to the side for a bit? What's left? Who are you? And as you say, many, many people, they have really, really big difficulties, struggles to actually answer that question. I for sure couldn't answer it when I came out of rehab. I had to reinvent myself. And that is the beautiful, beautiful thing. When you have been rock bottom, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you start creating the new you, which is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. It is a blessing. It's powerful. It is, wow. So next time you see someone who has been an addict and is now clean, or who has been an alcoholic and is now clean, look at them, and they will have gone through journeys that are often difficult, painful, but the outcome is absolutely beautiful. And if you are in this situation, if you guys are out there and are struggling, take one thing from this podcast, from this YouTube video today, is that there is hope out there, very much so. very much so. Find the right connection, find the right people who fit with you and who help you to see who you really are, to develop you into that person and work together. And there is no stopping you afterwards. There is no stopping you. Yes. And right now, you have no idea. You feel bruised and battered, but you have no idea what you can become. And whilst I'm not thinking of a Fiji island now, no, I'm thinking about the inner values, those things that make you, those things that are your backbone, your integrity, your passion. All that is waiting out there. So, Jin, you're so right. It's such a wonderful thing to actually see people developing into that, and there can't be enough people like you out there, because I can tell you there are a hell of a lot of alcoholics out there who.
It takes a lot of courage. I think that's amazing that you can go in, anyone that can acknowledge, go in and get support. That must take a lot of courage and deep soul searching. So, you know, that's just amazing. And yeah, like you say, there is hope out there. So, you know, for someone like me who's trying to support anyone who is alcoholic or any other stresses in life, because I'm pragmatic, I'll get to know the person and see, would they take to my kind of coaching, and get them to instantly focus. So for me, it's breaking things down, like the word stress. Not long ago, I was just thinking about the word stress, and I thought, well, why can't we turn that round on its head and turn it into a positive? So the S being a situation, what is happening right now? Just stop. The T meaning time to think. The R being reflection. Log your current situation and your feelings in your log, or a diary. The E being embrace. This is embrace your situation right now. It's just a momentary blip. It's not a momentary catastrophe. And just let it go. Understand that it's just a blip. Don't fight it, and don't denigrate yourself. And then the S being solution. So, okay, what practical solutions do I need now in mid-range and long-term? And the final S of stress is, well, how and what is that, and how do I go about doing it? So I thought, you know, I'm going to do a teaching session on the word stress, because I love acronyms. And yeah, it's about mindset shift. Don't overthink, don't overanalyze when these roller coaster moments happen, because, you know, like, you're never going to be always happy. You can't always be positive. There are going to be moments, you know, when you're down. So that stress acronym could be for anybody.
So true. So true. You nailed it on the head. You nailed it on the head. My book is not far from coming out. So My Steps to Sobriety, and I've put, it's actually spooky because your language is exactly my language. Your recommendations, your thought processes are very, very similar to what I've outlined in my book. So it's actually it's beautiful to see. This is not practiced, guys. So our talk today here is truly just bouncing two people who have been travelers ourselves, we're just bouncing ideas around, and as it so happened, we have learned actually very similar lessons, and it's beautiful to see. Oh, Jin, it's beautiful to see.
Thank you. It's good to be talking to you.
Oh, hell yes. Jin, thank you so much for being on my show. So, Jin, for everyone out there who is in the UK or wants to make contact with Jin, I've put the details down there into the sections below the film. So feel free to get in contact with her. I'm sure she can be of help to you. Certainly, if you're in the Midlands, you're still Midlands, isn't it? You're
Midlands now, but yeah, I can take calls from anywhere.
Nice.
Obviously,
Nice.
the situation I can't travel, but yeah, no, that'd be good to hear. Even if it's just questions or thoughts that they can share with you, and it'd be good if you collate that. You know, who knows? That'd be another teaching session or a conversation that comes out of this. So some of the key things that would be good to nail is what people's pain points are. So it's getting into those pain points and understanding that, and see if we can come up with not necessarily a solution, but at least to discuss this out in the open.
In the open, isn't it? And that's the key thing. We are trying to hide so much nowadays. All the social media is all about being pretty. Everyone has this perfect picture. You can't see any other picture. You think people have got a crack in their neck because that's the only picture that you will see from them, because that's their nice side. Fuck that. There's a beautiful wart there. Come on. So show us everything. Show yourself. Who is the true you? But that's the problem, of course. Most of us don't.
Being open, and just quickly to say, going back to culture, which is obviously another chat, but anyone who is from an Indian background and feels that they can't talk, they should be able to connect with somebody or with a group and not keep those sort of cultural nuances and suffer in silence. There's no need for that. So
that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think we should rather do this talk soon. I mean, what are the numbers? Most recently, I've read that about 25% of the Sikh population are actually rather into their tipple, and not necessarily in a good way, and that is deemed a rather big taboo. And you will teach us more on that. Yet it is happening, and it just reflects these 25%. That's probably about the percent of chemical addiction here in New Zealand. So the figures are actually not so far off. But addiction and alcoholism are typically bizarre diseases where the disease tells us that we are actually okay. And it gives us way to prove to ourselves that we are okay, that it's normal to vomit on the sidewalk. That's all good. That's all part of a culture. Yeah, right. Well, we'll talk about that another time, guys.
Another time, yeah. Good, brilliant.
Jin, look after yourself. Thank you so much for being here with me. I wish you all the best over there. Keep nicely isolated. We are lucky with our COVID situation here, but you guys are still battling it pretty hard. So look after yourself. Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.